As promised, delighted to say we're joined on the line now by XTC frontman Andy Partridge. He's just released a new book called Complicated Game, Inside the Songs of XTC with Todd Bernhardt. And he joins us now. Andy, thanks very much for joining us.
Hey, Tom, it's really me. Actually, it's a very hoarse version of me. I'm singing away here after dinner, my salubrious dinner of fish fingers and chips, and I'm, how would these rock gods live, eh? And I'm singing myself hoarse, strumming some old Rory Gallagher numbers.
Really?
Yeah, he
Which
was great
ones?
for me. He was huge for me, Rory. But we'll get back onto him. Yeah, something about a book. There's a Complicated Game is out right now, and it's Todd Bernhardt talking to me about some of the songs of XTC.
For reasons I don't know, I always thought you'd be the sort of person who wouldn't tell what was going on in songs, even if you were being tortured.
No, quite the opposite. You know, when people say, for example, people see like a magician doing I'm going to make this tiger disappear, you know, and the tiger goes, wow, fantastic, you know, tune in again next week. No, I want to know how they did it. To me, the little bit of magic is okay, but what is more magical is how they did it. I'm one of the I'm like a pop surgeon. I got to know how those records were made.
God.
Do you know what I mean?
How wrong I had you for so long.
Oh, no. I hate all that mystery stuff. That's just nonsense. You know, that's like an old hangover from the 1950s. No, you can't talk to the boy I manage because he likes to keep his air of mystery. No, he's so thick and stupid he can't say anything. Don't talk to him. All the game is up, you know. No, I love finding out what makes my favourite bands and my favourite artists tick. And I think it's only fair to bring out a book of surgery of XTC, you know.
To do this, you had to revisit all your songs, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
How was that?
I'm not one of those people that really listens to his own music. I mean, you know, I'm not Sting. It's just that, the only time I could listen to my own music before was if I got incredibly drunk.
Okay.
And that would put this. Well, it would break down a barrier that you have about narcissism or immodesty or even remembering how you did such and such an album or whatever. You know, sometimes I'd get incredibly drunk and go and lay out in my garden shed on the floor, put some headphones on, because I still didn't want the neighbours thinking I was being a complete banker and listening to my own music, you know. And I'd put the headphones on and I'd put an album I hadn't heard on for years and years and years. And then 10 minutes later I'd pass out. And then I might wake up 20 minutes after that saying, hey, who made this record? This is great. Because you go through the barrier if you forget who you are and you forget how it was done. And that's the only way I can do it.
That's a nice thing, though, isn't it? To listen to some of your own music and actually think, this is good.
It's weird. It's like, can you imagine staring in the mirror all day? It'd be horrible.
Yes. So what was it like? Because Todd is obviously a friend of yours and someone you can just talk to till the cows come home and be very comfortable around. So he's going to bring you down that road to all those songs, different points in your life.
Well, this was never intended to be a book, you see. What it was in the early days of coal-powered computer, there was a thing called MySpace. And Todd, who's a bit more of a whiz with computers than I am, you know, all I can do is cycle faster to get a bit more power to get it going. That's about my limit with it. But he said, you know what, I'd love to talk to you about some of your songs and how they were written and kind of the recording process and, you know, what it's all about and why you did this, that, and the other with them. Let's stick them up on MySpace. I'll start a little channel, and I'm sure there's enough fans out there who would just love that. So I said, okay. So he'd ring me up like once a week or once every 2 weeks, and we'd just chat like friends, which we were, you know. We met as professionals when he did an interview with me years ago, and then we just sort of stayed in contact, you know. And then he'd ring me up, and we'd say, hey, you know, do you want to talk about such and such a song? And I'd go and put it on and listen to it a couple of times on the headphones and things and make some notes to remind myself, oh, yeah, I'm doing that bit there. And Dave's doing that bit and he's in the other channel. And, oh, yeah, I remember we had an argument to get that bit worked out. Whatever, you know, little things come back to you, like, you know, things you'd forgotten, like playing Yacht Dance, an acoustic number on a whistle test. And it was when they had the live audience thing going on. And we were all a bit nervous because it was the first first date of a big European tour. And we were doing this song, Yacht Dance, and I think Colin Moulding kicked over a pint of water, and we were literally all paddling in this pool of water on this little tiny stage. And, you forget about this stuff. So you remember all sorts of stuff. It comes back to you when you hear the tracks.
It was fascinating. It almost comes across as a biography. As you read
it's kind of a biography by stealth.
Yeah, it's true.
In a way.
Yeah.
Ersatz, a great word. I love that word, ersatz.
Yeah, I always remember a phrase once that they said that men never talk face to face, they talk shoulder to shoulder. And this comes across as you and Todd shoulder to shoulder, concentrating on the songs. But a picture of you emerges at the same time. Yeah,
well, it'd be, you have to, whoever you're talking to, whatever artist, whatever the medium, you talk to a sculptor and you talk to a author or a painter, whatever. You're gonna, and you talk about their art. You're gonna find out, if it's a deep conversation, you're gonna find out lots about their life, just incidentally,
Yeah.
And I really used to look forward to these talks. And he built up like 90-something of these chats.
And something like 33 have made the book.
Some friends of ours who run a book company said, "I'll tell you what, let's put a bunch of these out." And I said, let's put them all out. Right. And that was impractical because it'd be like,
Huge.
about a 4-foot-high book.
Right.
So they said, let's pick just 30 that we fancy the look of, and let's put those out. And
this is it.
And, see how it does. So we did, and it's going really well. And I think they're into their 3rd or 4th printing already.
Some of the really
things like Volume 2 or...
Excellent.
So it's great, I've already done the hard work, and it wasn't hard work. It was just talking to a friend.
Some of the really interesting stuff that comes across is stuff that's gone on in your life at the time. One song, just to pick an example, is This Is Pop. And, from my perspective, when I got that, it just seemed like a whole group of young people who were all emerging at the same time, full of similar energies. But when you read it with you, you're kind of, you've arrived already before punk ever gets near you, haven't you?
Well, I was trying to make a new sort of music since the early 70s up until the mid 70s. I was in all sorts of bands that all centered around me. I'd put them together, or I'd find the people, and so I guess I was myself, and then later Colin Moulding became the kind of core duo, and we were Star Park and Clark Kent and the Helium Kids, the Snakes, whatever we were that month or that week. Sometimes I think we were Snakes for a couple of weeks. And it got to a point, and I thought, no, the music we're making is just too old-fashioned looking. It's too it's been done to death. We got to look towards the future by kind of smashing up the past and joining it back together in a different way. We got to cut our hair short. We got to wear something that makes us look more like futuristic musical mechanics or something. And this was around about 75, 76 we were getting into doing this. The rest of the band, they cut their hair reluctantly. I tell you, that was a fight.
Wow.
I felt like my own mother, saying, "Come on, get that haircut. You're not coming into this rehearsal room until you get that haircut off. This is January 1976. What's wrong with you? This is the future." And so I wanted to take some unusual bits and pieces from the past and stick them together in a different way. I wanted to take the sort of barbed wire guitars of Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band and make that into a kind of pop format like the Monkees. Or I wanted to take the noises that I heard in fairgrounds, because I used to love fairgrounds, or unfairgrounds. They're never fair, are they? I used to love the kind of Johnny and the Hurricanes, that cheap-sounding organ rock and roll, Or I liked the way that Buddy Holly would hiccup, and they'd put that hiccup into like an echo device, and it would get this kind of jumping sort of space. I don't know. It was like these weird ideas of the future and I started to put all this stuff and smash it together, and I thought, I can write songs. Of course, I was rubbish in 1976 at writing songs, but slowly I got better, and by 1977 the whole punk thing was there, and record companies were signing anything that moved. You know, if there was a fella that walked on stage and stood in a bath of gravel and played a trumpet, if he had short hair, they'd sign him up. He's got to be a punk trumpet player.
Yeah.
You know. Well, there's an accordion trio, and they just had their hair cut. Well, they got short hair. Great. They're punk accordionists. You know.
Yeah.
Record companies went crazy. They didn't want to miss the latest thing. And so XTC got signed up in the middle of 1977, just when it's all kicking off. But, you know, that was nice. But I was still learning in public, you know.
Right. It was, you weren't that impressed by the Sex Pistols when you heard them first?
No, it was just pub rock. You know, I'd seen that a million times before. What's 3 chords, shouting because of a crappy PA? Yeah, I've seen it a million times before.
And Johnny Lydon's attitude didn't blow you away, or?
No, because I was a fan of the Ramones for a year or more before that.
Yeah.
And I loved the New York Dolls since the early 70s. So attitude.
Right.
No, I had Tude mapped out already. I was a huge Stooges fan. I had all the Stooges albums.
Right.
You know, if we're talking attitude, come on, the Sex Pistols and Iggy.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
It's not a fair match.
It really isn't. You know, it's paraplegic versus Superman there.
It's become more one-sided as time has gone on as well.
Yeah.
No, they couldn't take him on now.
No.
So that was the start.
I remember first seeing the Sex Pistols videos in an HMV shop in Swindon. I said, let's go and see what all this fuss is about. I'm reading about it everywhere. Let me go and see. And I was kind of disappointed. I thought, this is just pub rock. It's not even fast. It's not futuristic. It's not tomorrow. It's yet more yesterday. You know, I could have seen this in a pub in 1972. In fact, I was in a band playing pubs in 1972, playing that kind of thing, you know. I wasn't excited by it. So, and I tried to figure out, they're calling this punk, are they? I mean, what does punk mean? It means rotten wood. No, that's not punk. You know, I thought the New York Dolls were punk. I thought maybe the Stooges could be called punk. But here we are in 77, 5 years later than all that, and 6 years later, whatever. And people are struggling looking for a word. To me, it's just pop music.
Okay.
And so I wrote the song "This Is Pop," trying to explain that. And I thought I'd be cheeky and take the most pop thing I could think of, which was the opening chord of "A Hard Day's Night." That chord, in fact, I've got an acoustic guitar. Hang on, let me lean over here.
Get it.
I'm going to put the phone down for a second.
Okay, no problem.
Because I was not blessed with quite enough arms, just the standard 2. The opening chord of "Hard Day's Night," which was, that's...
Okay.
You heard that as a kid, and that was just a knife in the heart of Queen Victoria, saying this is the end of the Victorian era. You know, the modern music starts here. That was amazing. So I thought I'd take that chord and make a whole song out of it. And I took another inversion of it, which is that sense, slightly similar, and I made a whole song. I'm just moving the same chord around on the guitar.
That's still affecting me exactly the way it affected me the first time I ever heard it.
Oh, you silly fish.
It's blowing me out of the
way. Yeah. And you know, the cheeky thing is, I recycled a piece of something which was extremely significant to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to explain to myself and to anyone who cares to listen what this new energetic form of music needs to be thought of. It's still pop music. We're just going to have to push the envelope some more. But let me do it cheekily by taking a chord, an extremely distinctive chord from something I loved as a kid, and I'll recycle it and make a new weapon out of it. You know, I'll beat my plowshare into a new sword. You know, and I even had the intro chord. I had the "Hard Day's Night" chord. I moved one note different on the top string to make it sound more shocking and more sour and more like it was biting your nose, you know. And I changed it from to. So I thought that's much more difficult for grannies to handle.
Yeah, a bit more slightly unsettling.
Yeah, it's more unsettling, and it says, this is the future. We're going to be thinking about music in a different way from now on.
And so it began. I didn't realise you were going to have the guitar to hand.
No, nor did I. It's just after my fish fingers and chips, I usually sit down and have a plink and a plonk. And,
this could change what I ask you about next. Yes. I still had Andy Partridge of XTC with us. Andy, were there any other songwriting moments that you think stood out for you? Because you did say at the beginning that you didn't think your songwriting was very good.
No, I was rubbish, and I think most people are. You know, even the Lennons and McCartneys of this world would probably say the first so many hundred were crappy. And they have to be. You have to get that blockage out of the way. You have to make all the mistakes you're going to make. Yeah. Up the front, you know, you don't pick up a paintbrush and then you're Leonardo da Vinci on day one. You're going to have to paint an awful load of crap before you get anywhere near it. And it's the same with any discipline, the same with any art thing. You know, if you're going to be a good writer, you're not going to sit at a piano on day one and come up with God only knows. You know.
Yeah. As you went,
I did write a load of rubbish.
Well, not for long.
I think I started getting decent around about the time of the second, third album, maybe. I thought I was getting into a bit of a thing in Drums and Wires. Yeah. And then onwards, I felt pretty unstoppable after that.
Drums and Wires, beautiful album out. I remember being in London, seeing it on billboards. If you said that, you know, This Is Pop was the sound of the future, it looked like the Drums and Wires was the image of the future.
Well, funny enough, what we were going to have on the front of Drums and Wires, I was advised that we probably wouldn't get away with it. I used to love comics. I still do like comics, but occasionally I would buy. I'm sure you got the Beano in Ireland.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I remember being in the studio and we were starting the Drums and Wires album. And I think somebody was changing some strings, or producer had gone to get a sandwich or whatever. And I thought, I'm going to go and buy myself a Beano to read. You know, I'm sick of looking at the newspapers; too depressing. I'll go and get a Beano. And I went and got a Beano, and I'm sat there, looking through this comic. And Dennis the Menace's Beano, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis and Nasher.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
grew up on them.
In this strip, Nasher had a set of drums. And I knew that I wanted to break away from the black and white image, because the White Music album was all black and white imagery and that sort of thing. And then Go-To, we carried it on with Go-To. We had the sleeve that was all white print on the front cover, telling you what a good record sleeve should do. And that was the design, was the explanation, you know. Yeah. And all that was black and white. And I thought, okay, Barry Andrews has left the band now. That's one whole sound, one whole chapter kind of walked out there. We're starting again. Dave Gregory came in. We got two guitars, bass and drums, maybe a little bit of keyboard here and there, because Dave's pretty nifty with the keyboard. But we need like a new start again, and I'm sick of the black and white thing. Let's go really colourful. I'm looking through this Beano, and I see this Dennis the Menace and Nasher strip, and Nasher's got a kit of drums. And this one panel, this one picture, is Nasher. He sat there, he's banging 7 bells out of these drums. And all it says above his head is boom, da-da, boom. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. A da-da boom. Because I love the art movement, da-da, anti-art, you know.
Yeah.
An art movement made out of not being art. I thought that was fantastic, you know. Of course, when was that? Like First World War era or something like that. And I was all sort of into that anti-art thing and futurism and all that sort of stuff. And just to see this frame with Nasher bashing this drum kit, and above his head was a big onomatopoeic sort of sound effect thing saying boom, da da boom. I thought, that's fantastic. That's the title of the album, and that's the front cover. And somebody took me aside and said, I tell you what, the owners of this comic, D.C. Thompson, they are so litigious, they will take anyone to court for the slightest thing. And Viz magazine will tell you this from much later on. And I was persuaded to drop this, you know. And I was ashamed. It was perfect. So the album should have been called Boom Dada Boom.
You live in
I had Nasher on the front. But I said, no, I still got to have this bright-coloured thing. And I was looking at an earlier logo of ours from a couple of years earlier, which was just like a really quickly scribbled XTC, really, really quickly splashed with a paintbrush type thing. I think I did it in the kitchen table, you know, on the kitchen table one night, and that was that's good. It's got to look like kind of classy but streety, personal but corporate or something. You know, it's got to tick all the boxes. And I looked at it and I thought, I wonder if there's anything to do with that, because now we don't have a cover and we got to find the cover within a week. What are we going to do? We don't have a title. We don't have a cover, you know. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, that looks like a face. And I just underlined it with a little scribble underneath the T.
Yeah.
I thought, that's it. That's the mouth. That's a face. It's a face looking at you. And that's it. That's what we're going to have. So we're going to have this face. It's going to be bright colors. Still don't have a title. And it popped into my head a lyric from a song that didn't get used.
Right.
From a previous album, the song was called Jazz Love. And the chorus went, jazz love, jazz love, jazz love, jazz love, jazz love. It's hearts on fire, jazz love, drum and wire. And I thought drums and wires. So I still got my little drum fetish in. This was the album where the drums were going to sound huge. We were two guitars. It was all steely and wiry. It was going to be bright colours. So that was it, literally in a flash. You know, we had this old logo that looked like a face.
It was brilliant. If I could have stolen one of those posters, I would.
Yeah, if I had one of those. I think they were some originally, but
they were up at the same time.
There were an awful lot of badges made of
They were released the same week as Cut from the Slits, and they were side by side on billboards.
Do you think I could get Dave Gregory, Colin Moulding and Terry Chambers to wrestle naked in mud? I tried.
You know, it might be better.
That can't be unseen.
No, it can't. The book has that dip in and out thing, and you can just go and find stories. And I know
all the best lavatorial books do.
And it won't be ending up in the lavatory, but just one to pick on, because it's such a fascinating story, is the whole era of Todd Rundgren on Skylarking and Dear God. The fact that Dear God really wasn't going to make it onto the album because you didn't think you had done a good enough job on it.
Wow, this is a long old story. I'll try and do a condensed version. How many hours have you got?
Keep going, Andy.
I knew that I wanted to write a song about me wrestling with the dying embers of my religious belief. Because as a kid, I was raised, you know, conventional kind of thing at the time. I was a 50s child, 60s child, you know. And my father was in the Navy, so when he was home on leave or whatever, we have to say grace at every mealtime. I was encouraged to say my prayers by the bed, you know. I got sent to Sunday school a few times, blah, 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 all the usual sort of stuff. But I used to think so hard about, was there a God? Were there angels? Was there a devil? What was this all about? I thought about this so hard as a kid that one day I was out playing. It was a warm day, and for some reason there was no one else around to play with, so I was just, you know, running around, sitting in a mud hole, whatever you do, and you know. A summer's day, nobody else to muck around with, me digging a hole, flicking balls of mud everywhere with a stick, you know. And I felt compelled to look up into the sky, and it was, you know, it was pretty blue sky, but there were little fluffy clouds here and there. And I looked up, and I swear I saw this cloud part, and there was a kind of Renaissance-style painting, a bit like that scene in Holy Grail, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, you know. There was a God character looking out of the clouds at me, and he had all angels around him and all, you know, disciples and that kind of stuff. And he's looking down at me very seriously, and I'm looking up at him. And then the clouds closed, and that was it. And I thought, what have I just seen?
What age were you then?
Oh, I don't know, 8, 9,
okay.
8, 7 or 8. There you go, say 8.
Yeah.
I can't honestly remember, but It was before we moved from our second council house, so I know the house, and I got the. I think we moved when I was like 9 or something, so I was about 8. We'll say that, and I didn't know what I'd seen. I mean, it was a hallucination.
Did you tell anyone?
No, I daren't. I mean, I was so wound up about religion, I hallucinated seeing God and angels and all that sort of stuff. And this was how hard I was thinking about it, you know? I mean, if I'd have come from a strict Catholic family or whatever, there would have been a shrine there. If I'd have told someone, they would have.
You would have been on the evening news.
I lived on, they would have nicked it.
Yep.
You know, why didn't my council estate have horses like the ones in Dublin?
I don't know, and I think, you know...
the ones in Dublin are great.
Yeah,
the
it's
same
fantastic.
architecture, the blocks and the rows, but they had horses.
We did have horses, and we had moving statues as well.
Just had burning cars.
Yes.
But no, I saw this vision in the sky, and I never told anyone because I was scared that I'd be humiliated or somehow made some weird example of, or I'd have to do these interviews with church people or school people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A kid doesn't want to do that. That's scary. But I realized later that it was me just trying to wrestle in my head with this thing about God. And we came to writing the songs for Skylarking. I thought, I've got to do something with this idea. But it's a sort of thing where you could make a whole box set out of. You wouldn't just write one song, but I'll try and get it down to like 3 minutes or something, you know. And I started messing around. And to be honest, I'm going to put the phone down again because...
Fantastic.
I was actually messing around. When I went to college, I went to art school, the art part of Swindon College. The only song I could play well on the guitar was the Beatles' Rocky Raccoon. And I used to take my guitar to college, and they'd sort of get me to stand up on the table when the teacher left the room and play Rocky Raccoon. So I'd be stood on the table at college and somewhere in the black mountain hills of Dakota, sheesh, what's the chords?
Young boy,
Rocky Raccoon. Anyway, that sort of thing. And I was messing around, sat in the kitchen here in my house here, years later on the run up to Skylark. I thought I really must write a song about the belief thing, and I started dicking around with Rocky Raccoon. Just, you absent-mindedly sort of, you wander off, your fingers wander, your brain wanders, and I'm going, and I started messing around, moving the root notes around like in Rocky Raccoon. I thought, I like that. There's something a little bit gunslinger about that. This is going to be a serious song, maybe. This is the God song I want. And I was playing it very fast, much faster than that. And it sounded more like skiffle, Jing, jigga, 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 jing, jigga, jigga. And I thought, no, that's right. That's the right chords, but that's not the right sentiment. I've got to really slow it down to that kind of gunfight speed, Yeah. And I wrote this song, which is... I remember at the time there were this rather tacky book out called Dear God, and it was children's letters to God. And I saw it. I went into, H.M. Smith or W.H. Smith. That's it. Yeah. The bookstore. Are they still going, W.H. Smith?
They are. Yeah. I've seen them at airports. Yeah, they're still. Still
and I went in and saw this book, Dear God, this little pocket book, and it was like these letters to God, and it was kind of cynical. I thought, they're getting kids to write to God, and I thought, well, that's how religion travels. You beat it into kids. You scare kids into it. Because the one age group you can scare really easily is kids. Mold them your own way. That's how you give me them young. Yes. Got them forever. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna borrow that title, Dear God, for this song, and I'm gonna write a letter to God as an adult, saying, I know you don't exist, and da 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 da. And I was trying to just condense all of my thoughts down into 3 minutes, and we recorded it and did it over in Todd's sort of large garden shed over near Woodstock in the States. Todd Rundgren, this is, not Todd Bernhardt. And Todd Rundgren said, he was going to keep our arrangement, but what about when I told him it was because of the kids' letters to God, dear God? He said, well, why don't we get a kid to sing the first verse? And I thought, oh, dear, that sounds a bit tacky, but all right, okay, we'll give it a go, And he got this friend of the family's, a little girl called Jasmine Vailette, what am I talking about? Jasmine Vailette to sing the first verse. He banned us from the studio because she was nervous enough as it is. And it sounded okay. And I thought, yeah, it's kind of effective,
Yeah.
And we heard the finished thing. And I was called into a meeting before the release of the album to Virgin Records in London. And the A&R man said to me, look, this album's too long. Because Todd Rundgren's renowned for making albums that are too damn long. And this was the era of vinyl still. And you just couldn't cut albums too long on vinyl because the quality would suffer and it would get quiet and thin. Yeah. No bass, no proper top, Yeah. And he said, look, we've really got to make this album shorter, so we're going to have to lose something. Lose a song. And he said, this song, Dear God, is really going to upset the Americans, and this album won't get played. That track's going to upset Americans. So Geffen Records in the States have said, can this track go? And we think this track should go as well. And that really dug into my fear that I hadn't done the subject justice.
Right.
That really, to me, that pulled the rug right from under me. And I thought, they know that I haven't written this huge subject well enough. And so I reluctantly said, okay, if you want to get rid of that one, get rid of that one. I won't take a Collins song off because he thinks like I used to get him enough as it was. So. Right. But we'll leave Collins' songs untouched. You take that one off.
It's just
then.
really
if
a confidence thing.
It can become a B-side. We'll just stuff it away on a B-side somewhere. Yeah. And so they put a single out in the States, the nice-looking bass player, Colin Grass. They put his single out, Grass, and I would shove that throwaway track, Dear God, on the B-side. And a couple of radio stations in the States started flipping the record over just to check out the other side, and they started playing Dear God. And all those corny expressions like our switchboard lit up like a Christmas tree and all that just happened because people would ring into that station and they would either say, play that again immediately, that's just how I think, play that again, that's fantastic. Or they'd ring in and say, get that filth off of the air.
Either way. I'm
going to bomb your station if you play that again.
Yeah.
And this is what tended to happen. People either would say that is completely how I feel, or that is terrible, you cannot play that ever again. I'm offended. So Geffen Records panicked, said you've got to add this back onto the album. Yes. So we had to get rid of another song. So I said, well, I can't get rid of Colin's songs because you think I'm getting at him. So I pulled the track Mermaid Smiled of mine off and we put Dear God back on.
Amazing. What a story.
So I failed gloriously, but it seemed to upset enough people that it kind of did really, really well for us, if you see what I mean. It totally started our career. Well, it not started it. It gave it a huge boost.
It really did
in the States because we weren't a touring band at that point. Yeah. I was sick of the whole touring circus. Never saw a penny from 5 years of sellout shows, and I was making myself sick, really sick mentally and physically, with jumping through hoops for everyone else, not seeing anything and in the end, my body rebelled, and
it's such a pity because
I realized quite quickly that I am not the performing Seal type. I'm much more the quiet sort of backroom fella. I love making records. That to me is the magic, is making the records.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you one question. I interviewed Damon Albarn years back, and I asked him about how he started writing songs, and he immediately said that you gave him a 4-track recorder. And that was what started him off.
Was it a 4-track? It was an 8-track. It was an 8-track cassette recorder.
Wow, that's
even
better.
And Justine
Yeah.
Frischman, came up to my place, and I sold it to him literally for a song, but I wanted to upgrade to getting an ADAT digital machine.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, I need one." So, we'll come up and collect it then. So him and Justine, I was very impressed with Justine because she had a 1940s male demob suit on, a real kind of spivvy-looking thing in pinstripe. And I thought, a classy-looking woman,
Yeah, well, it was the making of him, and he's never forgotten it.
Well, I never. Well, he's forgotten it was 8-track.
Yeah, well, that was me. I think, to be honest, I couldn't believe.
I think it was called like a Porta 2 or Porta.
I remember them.
428 or 248 or something like that. Everything was Porta in that era when they came out. Porta this, Porta that.
Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you all night, to be honest.
Hey man, you shouldn't start me off. I'm just a talking machine.
If you ever wish to come over to Ireland, bring your guitar with you, and I can sit you down in a corner and we can go through even more songs. Andy, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Complicated Game is the book inside the Songs of XTC, and if you do make it over, please do come in and see us from Maria Guitar. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, all right, promise.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Andy.
See you, man. Bye.
And I pray you can make it better down here. I don't mean a big reduction in the price of beer, but all the people that you made in your image, see them starving on their feet, 'cause they don't get enough to